Are you someone who longs for a world more magical than your own? Do you wish you could just turn into a little fairy and run around amongst the leaves? Is your heart full of desire to fill your space with little trinkets and shiny things that bring you joy whenever you look at them? Well, if all these things sound relatable, then you are a lot like me. Hello there, my name is Shay Madeline, and I am an artist, a crafter, and a hobby enthusiast who has lately been doing everything within my power to bring just a little bit more whimsy into my life without breaking the bank. Today, I will be showing you one of the ways I have been trying to introduce whimsy into my life lately, and that is through adding little creatures and trinkets into my home. Now, when I say I'm adding little creatures to my home, I unfortunately do not mean that I'm going around and finding little mice and rabbits and squirrels to let in and be my new roommates, but instead I'm actually making my own little creatures to have as friends that I keep around the house. Now, so far at the time of making this video, I have only gotten through making one completely, so you'll only be seeing one of them today, but I will also show you some other things that I keep around on my bookshelf that do add a little bit of just whimsy and joy into my everyday life. Now I am super excited to show you the little guy that I've made for you today. I think he is super cute and that you're gonna love him. So I want to go ahead and jump right into the art for today's video. So today I have one goal in mind. I am going to make myself a little mushroom folk friend, kind of like a little fairy that is mushroom inspired, who I'm going to put on my bookshelf to be a little guy that looks over all of my special trinkets and creations and of course my books. The way I have decided to make him is I'm going to use polymer clay, which is a medium I've never really used before. The last time I used clay was back in, I think, middle school, and I always hated clay, but I figured it'd be worth giving it a try. And I actually found that I really enjoy the process of using polymer clay, so I'm very happy that I gave it a try. Of course, though, before I can jump right into that, I do have to make up a little bit of a sketch. So, of course, like any other artist, I first went to Pinterest to get some ideas of what a mushroom folk character might look like, and a lot of the drawings looked a lot like this, so I did get quite a bit of inspiration from this, and then I kind of just put together a little bit more based on what I wanted. So it obviously doesn't look exactly like this, but the hat is pretty inspired from this guy. Now, this is a sketch I came up with, and I will say this is very ambitious for someone that has no previous experience really with clay, and I do not achieve this at all. I get something much simpler, but I still think pretty cute. But this is the goal, just so you know, going forward. But finally, we get to the clay itself, and as you can see, I am opening up the package and tearing off a little chunk. Now, once again, I do not have really any real experience with clay, but I do at least know that kneading the clay is an important first step. I also have my little cup of tea in front of me, so that helps keep me motivated. Something else I know from the past is that tools are very helpful and that you can actually use tin foil as a way to save on clay itself and also speed up the cooking time when you do get to that part of the process. So I did use a little bit of tin foil to make both the head and the body later on. And then I decided to just put the clay around that, and then that saved me honestly a ton of clay and materials, and probably quite a bit of time as well, because it was a little bit easier, in my opinion, to smooth the whole thing out. I did have to try this a few times to get the right size. My goal was to make a circle and then use that to wrap around the tinfoil head, and I did ultimately have to do it a few times, I think, but I still think it was a pretty good method, and it was just me being new to the medium that made me have to do it a few times. But now this is what the body is starting to look like after connecting the head to the little body piece that I had made previously. As you can see, I'm using a little tool to smooth those two pieces together to the best of my ability. Now, if you remember from my sketch, there is a little mushroom hat that is supposed to be sitting on top of this guy's head. This is my first attempt at the hat. Overall, I like the shape and I like how it kind of sits on the head and looks like a real fabric in my opinion, but it is much too small. So I resized it, and then this is what it looks like after adding on a much bigger piece. Now I didn't show it very well, but the next step is to start working on making the arms and the feet for this guy. And then that's about it for all there is for the sculpting process. So I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead and move on to the painting. So as you can see, I already started painting the hat red and then the inside of the hat brown to look like a mushroom. The next step is kind of just going around and I'm painting the bridge of the mushroom hat, or like that little rim along the edge, a little bit of a brighter red so that it really sticks out. I do eventually end up changing this though, and I'll show you that right now. I decided that red wasn't enough of a contrast, so I went with pink, and I also added pink in some other parts of the design, so overall I think it helped balance the piece a little bit more. After finishing that pink, I did go through and add some details to make the mushroom hat look a little bit more like a mushroom. I think it's very cute, and this is how it's looking at this part of the process. Now, this is a point where I really start to go away from that original sketch. This guy is now going to be a wizard, and he's going to have that classic purple wizard robe, which is very different from my original plan, but I think is super cool and super whimsical, because of course that is overall the goal of making this little mushroom man, and I think it's also very cute. And of course, also was a little bit easier for me to make as someone who is new to sculpting. Up until this point, me being new to sculpting has not caused that many issues until now. When making the design, I did not at all think about how hard it would be to paint around that big hat that I made. I love how it looks, but getting into the little crevices to get to the head and to get between the hat and the parts of the purple robe is really difficult, and I keep having to go back and fix things. In fact, it got so difficult that I forgot that I needed to keep him in camera view, so I spent a long time painting him with him up in the air just like this. Luckily though, I do get him to a point where I finally am happy with the paint job on the base features, and I can finally go in and start painting in the little details like the little spots on his hat that finally makes it look like a mushroom and not like just a blanket laying on his head. Now at this point everything is pretty much smooth sailing. I am using the back of my paintbrush to get those spots on there in a bit more of a actual circular kind of way. I just found that with the actual brush I wasn't able to get perfect dots, but with the back of the paintbrush I was. And with the white spots especially, I really like how this technique worked. I just think it is so cute, and the white brings in such a cute little pop of color. And at this point, I am just loving how it looks. So now all the spots are on. I also painted the little thing around his neck blue because I thought adding a little bit of blue to the color scheme would look pretty. Now I can finally go in and start working on the face. I kind of struggled to show this process to you though, just because I don't have the best recording setup. But my first step was to go through and give him little blushing cheeks, not too bright, but just enough you can see it. But now I am just about done with his face, just putting in the little black dots in his eyes, and I think that he is just adorable, genuinely. He looks like a little bookkeeper or like a wizard in a library, and I just love that about him. If you'll remember, his whole job is to be the keeper of my books and my bookshelf trinkets, so he just looks perfect for the job. Now, as a final little touch, I decided to add a little bit more pink by adding pink to the ends of his sleeves, where like the ruffles would be, I suppose. And I'm also very happy with this decision. It's kind of weird, and I don't know if you'd ever see it in a real outfit, but I like it a lot, and I like how it kind of pulls the whole color scheme together. But at this point, I don't know if you can tell by me shaking him around, but he is done. Now it is time for the final reveal. I'm going to show you how he looks as he is sitting atop my bookshelf surrounded by all of the little creations and trinkets that I keep there, as well as my books of course, and I will show you what his home looks like. Right here is where he spends the majority of his time. He is residing on the very top shelf of my bookshelf, right next to this lovely magical cafe. This is a little cafe that I made as a little book nook that I got for my birthday. Next to it is another little book nook that is much, much smaller, and it is some sort of fairy trap. So he is on the lookout to see if I catch any fairies in this little lovely home that I made. And behind even that, there is a Lego boombox set. To the left, I have some crochet plushies. I made another mushroom folk that I have not shown on video before, but he is kind of like a big mushroom folk, not related to this one, and if anything, a whole nother completely different species because he is so much bigger. But he is crochet, and he stands next to this crochet Totoro that I bought at a craft fair quite a while back, actually, at this point. Now, this is where he will be spending the majority of his time, right next to this little cafe. I really hope you enjoyed him and enjoyed this video. I am going to wrap it up now. If you have made it this far into the video and have enjoyed the process, thank you so much for sticking around. Please do consider liking and subscribing because it does tell me that you enjoy this type of video and would like to maybe see more polymer clay creations in the future. But as of today, this is all I have for you. I hope you go forth and have a very fun, creative, and hopefully whimsical day.